Hi, this is Shane Starr on an early Monday morning in November, and I think this is just as good a time as any to continue my series on the 48 laws of power and the cognitive functions. Today we're doing TI, Introverted Thinking, and to sum up the theme of this function along with this book, I would say knowledge is power encapsulates it. Lead TI people understand how the system works, understand just the inner structure and working of things such that they can then navigate things, even things they're not naturally good at, like social things, power struggles of that nature. By understanding the systems, they can sort of still glide through most of the time. But there are some things that they do better than the rest of us, and let's get into them. So we're going to start with Law 3. And this is for, again, our lead TI introverted thinkers. Law 3, conceal your intentions. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. Now, I think NI people can do this too, but TI people are masterful at this. I'm thinking of the socionics ISTJs, Myers-Briggs ISTPs, and our INTPs. Those groups, the lead TI people are really good. That would be INTJ and socionics. So the lead TIs are excellent at concealing their intentions. They find out enough knowledge, and by the time you see the web they're spinning, you're already trapped in it. They already got you. Now, if you're an SE lead, you know how to break out of that stuff in the moment pretty good most of the time. But whereas the TI leads aren't as good at acting in the moment, they don't need to be that good at it because they're 3 moves ahead of the rest of us, working through, within, and around the structures and systems in place at any workplace, and just slowly and surely moving their way up. It reminds me of a checkers game I played with my brother once. It infuriated him to no degree. What I did is I slowly just moved my pieces up, and he took one here and there, and I didn't take any of his, and he felt like, yeah, I'm winning. And we got to a point where my whole row moved up, and he couldn't make any moves anymore. So he lost because he could no longer make a move. And all I did was just move my forces up. That's kind of like TI. The rest of us don't see the strategy behind the moves, and maybe that's my one little TI claim to fame. Anyway, it was pretty cool, and that's how TI people operate in the personal world and in business as well. So conceal your intentions. Don't be a loudmouth. Hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Then everyone knows your desires, everyone knows your ambition, and people who don't have your best interests in mind can stop it. When you conceal your intentions and just build up your knowledge, by the time you're making moves, they can't catch you even if they try. Okay? Next up for TI, Law 4. Always say less than necessary. This is a law that I have never been able to master. It's not because I'm so talkative, it's because in one-on-one interactions, I end up, saying too much, sharing what I know. Sometimes it's to help the other person, sometimes it's just for conversation. But this law, in brief, Always say less than necessary. When you are trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear, and the less in control. Even if you say something banal, it will seem original if you make it vague, open-ended, and sphinx-like. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. The more you say, the more likely you are to say something foolish. And that's true. I mean, that's how police detectives and officers get people to confess unwittingly. Is they make them feel comfortable and then ask them questions and just sit back and share and act personal. And then before you know it, speckled in there with moments of uncomfortable silence, the person on the hot seat just starts talking and talking until they hang themselves, basically. TI leads are masterful at this. They always say less than necessary. In fact, they don't say enough, in my opinion, but it's better to say too little than too much. I'm thinking of all the things I've got myself in trouble over. It's because I told the wrong thing to the wrong person. And when you have your knowledge built up and you feel comfortable keeping it to yourself, you're going to be better off and you'll be admired. And it is true what they say in this book, what the author says in this book, that the less you say, the more important each thing you say really is. So always say less than necessary, not more. Okay, next up, law number 11. Another thing that TIs are excellent about. Now, some people might disagree with my placement here, but hear me out. Law 11, learn to keep people dependent on you. To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Make people dependent on you for their happiness and prosperity and have nothing to fear. Never teach them enough so they can do without you. When you combine Law 11 with Laws 3 and 4, conceal your intentions, say less than necessary, and learn to keep people dependent on you, you have a TI formula for success. Gather knowledge, keep it to yourself, and people will need to come to you for help. There's a young guy who started around the same time as me in our company, and he's not the most social guy, but he's definitely a TI lead. I think he's an INTP in MBTI, INTJ in socionics. And he follows these, or he just naturally demonstrates these laws. And as a result, he's moving up in his own way up the totem pole of management. And he does it he learns a lot. He keeps the knowledge to himself, and then whenever someone needs help doing a difficult task like, a purchase order for a remediation, for a demolition, rebuild or something, he knows where to find the codes. He knows how to put in the order in our system. He knows how to follow up, and none of the rest of us even know what we're doing with that. We all need help. And so he becomes like a de facto manager just from his knowledge alone. So I don't think he's selfishly trying to keep people dependent on him. It's just a natural output of knowledge is power. Say less than necessary, conceal your ambitious intentions, and then Law 11 naturally follows. That keeps people dependent on you. Okay, next up, Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. TIs are excellent at this. It's a fool who always rushes to take sides. Do not commit to any side or cause but yourself. By maintaining your independence, you become the master of others, playing people against one another, making them pursue you. I don't see TIs necessarily playing people against each other, but they're very good at refraining from commitment. You see, as great as they are in the workplace and in social groups, you see a lot of FE leads make the mistake of over promising and under delivering. You know, like they have so many commitments, one of them at least is going to fall between the cracks. When you have a TI lead who doesn't make those commitments, then they come through on something. They seem like the hero, even though the person who promised 10 things and was only able to deliver on 7 of them did more. They're looked at as a failure because everyone always remembers the bad, right? The TI leads, on the other hand, don't commit to anyone, and then they do 1 or 2 things. Everyone's like, dude, you saved me. Thank you so much, man. You're the best. And it's amazing how that principle works. And, you know, I remember, I don't think my brother's a TI lead. However, I remember I used to loan people money a lot when, you know, we were young adults just fresh out of college and stuff. And sometimes I'd get sick of it and say no. And then my brother, who always said no, would say yes to the person when I didn't. And they'd be like, oh, dude, yeah, your brother's such a jerk, you know, thanks, bro, you know, you saved me. And I'm thinking, dude, I loaned you money all those times when he said no. And then he does it one time and you think he's your hero. Okay, fine, you know. That's the magic of TI leads. By never committing, and by strategically saying yes every now and then, they're somehow more popular without even trying and more respected than someone who does it all the time and then has to back off and say no. I think this is also in The Prince, where, you know, a prince who's miserly and then says yes here and there, everyone thinks he's you know, again, great. Whereas the prince who gives too much and then has to do cutbacks, that person is scorned at, even though he was the more generous of the two. So there you have it. If you had to encapsulate this in one saying, it would be knowledge is power. Every one of these laws: do not commit to anyone, conceal your intentions, say less than necessary, learn to keep people dependent on you. These are all consequences or results of that natural TI knowledge is power saying that I like to ascribe to them. If you are a lead TI person and this resonates with you, let me know. Otherwise, that's it. That's all for today. Next time, we are moving to Extroverted Intuition. Peace out.